All right, without further ado, so for today's webinar, we're going to go through, of course, chatting with our panel, getting some insights from the white paper and research related to it that EGYM just recently published. We'll let you know how to get a hold of that report. And then the panel is going to have a conversation about what real people want from their membership and how we're going to help them get there. And then some Q&A. So if you've used Zoom before, which I know everyone on this line has, we all have become experts. There's a Q&A section in the tool. So please type in your questions and we will get to those at the end after we have our chat. So again, please make note of those because we can't wait to answer them and give you some perspective from our panelists. And of course, we're joined, as I mentioned earlier, by Dana Milkey, who's the general manager of EGYM North America now. He has an extensive background of both serving in a senior vice president role for a major Gold's Gym operator in the Northwest. He's held other technology roles at ABC Fitness, In Touch, where he serves as acting chair. And now in his role at EGYM North America, he's doing a lot of things to help people bring digital to their member experience. So welcome, Dana.
Thanks, Brian. Excited for another great conversation.
And then my colleague, Chris Crater, for those of you that don't know him, and I don't know how many of that will be, it couldn't be many. He is the CEO of ACAC, a great group of clubs in 3 states. They operate beautiful facilities and wellness centers. He is also CEO of Weld Health. Chris serves on the board of IHRSA with me. He's the vice chair and has headed up public policy, recently launching the National Health and Fitness Alliance as well. And he's also a fantastic dad. Chris, thank you so much for making time, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to make sure we prove that with my placard given to me by my kids. I think there's only one of these out there. But yeah, thanks for having me, Brian. Really a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
You know, a lot of people don't know what goes on behind the scenes at IHRSA. I want to thank you for all your work. I know there have been a lot of people either on the board or indirectly involved with NHFA and other organizations around the world. And we want to thank you for that and thank everyone who's really been putting their shoulder to the grind here in the last year and a half. So anyway, Chris, thank you for making time. I know how busy a guy you are.
Yeah,
thanks, Brian.
Hey, Brian, one thing I want to add from EGYM's perspective on the vendor side is what a great experience I think IHRSA that was this year in Dallas. And I think we couldn't be complimentary enough of the work that was done behind the scenes, both by the IHRSA staff and the board and all the people associated to make it a great event. So we were, as vendors, of course, we were all holding our breath, but I think that the way that the team at IHRSA put it together was fantastic.
Thank you, Dana.
A huge shout out to Chris and you and everybody involved at IHRSA and the IHRSA team for a really great event.
Thank you. Thank you. A lot of people, a lot of hard work. It was a great event. Great to see everybody. So anyway, let's talk about this white paper. And we're going to touch on some things here and then get into some conversation. So EGYM, financed this research piece, and created a white paper around it that was a survey. And it really asked some important questions because we all hear people talk about technology and that's such a broad spectrum of things. And this survey really focused on specific aspects of the impact. And it was from Europe, North America, and Asia. So it had a worldwide flavor to it. And EGYM used an outsourced firm to do that. And the findings here are very, I think, important right now for many reasons that we'll touch on. But before we go further, look, you can take a shot of this on the QR code here to get a copy of it. I know we'll send out, I think, links following this to get it as well, Dana. It's worth your time to read this. We're going to touch on some of the general findings that are very interesting. But listen, when you have vendors and partners willing to spend money on these things and give them away free, it's a great tool for anyone on this call or this video to utilize and to really think about what you're going to be doing with technology now and tomorrow. So I really urge you all to explore the report in detail. Here are some.
Hey, Brian,
Yeah,
one quick thing, one quick thing to add into the addition of, we took a survey from around the globe, which was an important piece for us. We also grabbed feedback from a variety of different types and sizes of operators as well. So it was a global in nature, but it was also, small, medium, large studios, lifestyle clubs, HVLP. So we try to do as good a job of cross section when we're gathering this information as we could. So it was a true representation of, what fitness operators and health club operators are really saying.
Yep, great note to note. So a few of the things, and I'm going to ask Chris a little bit about his thoughts on some of these stats. So one very interesting thing that came out of the survey was 3/4 of the operators surveyed, they're going to spend money on tech in 2022. There's no doubt. So a lot of people are evaluating investments in technology for their clubs. But the interesting thing about that is about half of them are unsure of where to invest that money. Chris, you are a very technologically oriented business, and I know as a professional, you're very attuned to these things. Does that surprise you as a stat?
Not at all. I think this is something that we all struggle with because, quite simply, there are so many options now for technology. I think for any of you who were at the IRSA show, this year, as perhaps even in previous years, a number of technological solutions that are available to clubs has only multiplied. So I think part of this uncertainty is really because of so many choices. It's almost like looking at a very large menu at a restaurant and not really being sure what to order. So this is not surprising at all to me.
Yeah. And further to that point is, when they're considering about what to think about in the realm of that investment, people use the term member experience a lot. We're going to get into a little bit more about this, but Chris, does this surprise you either, or?
Not really. I mean, I quite frankly, it probably needs to be higher. If we're looking as we focus for the future of the industry, we're going to continually be judged on the experience we provide relative to other consumer brands, not relative to one another. And I think ultimately, the expectations of the consumer are growing exponentially each year. And so to me, this is something where we're probably underselling the need to invest in the member experience, according to the data from the survey.
Yeah, that the question then is, Dana, I'd like to hear your thought on this, is when you think about member experience, which is so many different things, right? The survey showed that the workout experience itself is the thing that the survey participants really wanted to focus on the most as the main component of experience. Dana, tell us what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, well, first I agree with Chris that I think 52% seems low to me around the member experience. Because if you think about the member experience and you plug in the word consumer experience, and you think about the world that we live in outside of health and fitness, everything's about the consumer. Like Amazon's built around that. I mean, there's 57 huge companies that you could name that have really dialed in the consumer experience to the point where they know everything about them. And obviously it's helped them, with like rocket fuel to grow. So I agree with Chris. I think 52% is probably a little low on this side. But I do think where we haven't changed and evolved as an industry is really, what does that workout experience? What is the workout experience on the workout floor? What is the technology that we can bring to them? Like, what are those things that we can connect the dots around the workout experience? Because ultimately, from a brick and mortar perspective, that's really when we think about the member ecosystem or the member experience, that's where we can differentiate. That's where we can drive a better experience, where we can engage more, we can build community, we can create motivation. So I think they got this right. I'd like to see more people focused on the member experience though going forward.
Yeah. So in this regard, Chris, tell me your view of this, because I know you've talked a lot about this. We've had a few conversations about this in recent years. So in order for gyms, health clubs to continue to play a leading role, um, you know, you've got to apply those tech solutions with a certain purpose from a business perspective. I mean, have you seen folks get kind of caught up at times in the shiny new thing without really knowing the context of its application?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we oftentimes are putting out technology that we think our members want, when in reality there are simpler, maybe more kind of tried and true solutions available. Like, look, not every problem should be solved with technology, but some of them should be. And I think one of the challenges as a fitness provider is to identify which of those should be solved with technology. And I'll give you examples of, how should lead capture be handled? Well, technologically, it makes more sense to have a technological solution for that. However, if we're doing workouts, is it always better to have a technology solution for delivering a workout on the floor? Meaning, does every senior carry a smartphone with them when they go to the gym? Is that how we're delivering their workout program? I think it's going to be variable. So I do think from a purpose perspective, I also think that purpose needs to be not just applied with a purpose for, generally applied with a purpose for the consumer, for the member. At the end of the day, they're the ones who pay the bills. And if we're looking at this from a club-centric or operator-centric lens, yet it is more difficult for the consumer to consume our product because they're using technology, well, then I think that purpose is misguided. I think we've got to look at it from the lens of the consumer and how do we make their lives easier and more productive as a customer of ours.
Yep. And there's so many choices, right, Dana? So,
Yeah.
what it's not necessarily, and again, these are broad terms, but I think that we could think of examples of things, right, where you were applying it, but the weight on the experience is not that great, right? Is that how you characterize it, Dana?
Yeah, and I think one of the things when we think about applying technology with a purpose, I agree with 100% with Chris. At the first, I always think of starting at the end when I think about how you strategically attack something. And the consumer and your specific consumer for your demographic within your club is really where we want to, is the end point. And then you have to align with your business and what you're trying to develop and deliver. And technology should support that, enhance that, and enable that as it relates to specifically your consumer and what they're looking for in member experience. But I think that the idea that technology is, for instance, streaming content, because when COVID hit, what we saw was a huge uptick in people needing an app to push out workouts and create content. And the world went crazy for about 6 months on that. And we were, right there in the thick of thing, helping, enabling, doing all those kind of things. But at the end of the day, did it really resonate with members? And I think the answer is probably not in a lot of cases, because there was no strategy around it. It was just like a rush to defending against these other things, as opposed to a really thought through strategy on how you do that. And then probably the other piece is, look, the big guys, the Apples of the world, Apple Health, if they're in the streaming content game, ultimately because of their breadth, their financial wherewithal, they're going to win that. And is that really a game you want to get into? So content, I think streaming content in the beginning was one where everybody rushed to it without a plan, without a strategy. And I don't think it was very effective. So that's where we go back to and say, okay, let's understand what your purpose is and then start thinking about how that impacts the member experience.
Yeah, and Chris you talked to me about this when you all were going through all the challenges with the COVID situation, Chris. And you all did a lot of different things. What is your thought about this?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I like to talk in analogies, an analogy I would use for a lot of technologies, it's almost like getting a new puppy. At the end of the day, you've made a 15-year commitment to do something, right? So when we're buying content and investing in streaming and investing in a mobile app, these are big financial decisions that you're making for a long period of time. But we're in this vacuum of COVID trying to make decisions to meet the needs of the member now. It sounds great. You have this puppy and then you end up with a dog. So I think that we've got to realize that these are investments that we're going to have to babysit. I mean, you think about streaming content and you're going to create your own. How long can you as an organization continue to use a valuable space in your club, in your facility, to have dedicated studios? Or how often can you keep on coming in with fresh content to keep those members consuming your product online happy? This is something that will require constant maintenance and constant upkeep, and it doesn't necessarily get any easier. So much like the puppy analogy, you've made this commitment to something that will need constant care and attention. And so when we're looking at technology, you have to ask, okay, with the end in mind. I think that's a great Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. Okay, how long can you reasonably support this? And is this something that you as a company will be willing to invest in for not just the next 6 months, but for an extended period of time?
Yeah, you really have to think about it that way, right? Because in the end, to build brand loyalty, to make your business differentiate to where it's a business advantage, the purpose should be skewed more to, your brand, your customers, and the outcomes or experiences you're trying to deliver. Yeah, and I think that I think we'd all agree with, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on, transforming the workout experience. If that's really part of the member, the lion's share of the member experience, what do you think about, what have you all done in focusing on the workout experience with digital, Chris? What are some of the things that you all are contemplating in that regard?
Sure. Well, speaking first on the on-demand, which became something that for our style of club, we're a higher end multi-sport, multi-purpose facility. So we offer quite a few things to our members. We built it as an add-on to membership. So we looked at our streaming service as something that would allow us to deliver content to our members, while they're on vacation, while they're maybe away from the club, allow them to keep their membership active. And so we didn't charge separately for it. It was something that was included in our membership, and now it becomes part of our value proposition. So from our perspective, it allows us to offer more to that client for a similar price point and become something that's part of their package. As far as the other pieces of digital experience, I think what else can consumers do with their phone is basically how we look at it is, everything is driving to a more mobile solution. What can the users do individually from their phone with a single point of service? Meaning it's really easy. I saw the mobile apps up there. It's really easy to clog up now as a health club and receive 4 or 5 apps maybe, because you have all these different purposes you're trying to achieve. Right. So I think for us, the job of the next, 3, 4, 5 years, or even next 12 months is how do you consolidate that digital offering into a single point of service for our membership to simplify their experience with the brand?
Yeah. And Dana, do you think, I know in our clubs and in other experiences that I've had, like when Chris talks about the plethora of different things they offer, because it's a more complicated offering.
Yep.
Is it an 80-20 rule where you got to get to your core? Because if you try to manage, to Chris's point, too many things, it gets hard for everyone to do that well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to a couple of slides that we were talking about before. And, first, I think what you have to really decide is, who you are, right? Who your member is, right? Always start at the end. Who your member is, what the outcomes you're trying to drive to the members, what your brand and, align with your brand and your business, and then really start building your digital offering around that, with the realization, Brian, good point. You're not going to capture 100% of the use cases. Like right. That's virtually impossible. But what you can do is create a workout experience, right? Leveraging digital that is at the core of what your offering is. That then allows you to build a platform that you could start to pull in other types of information. So for instance, having a digitized workout experience, but having members pull stuff in from their Apple Watch or from MyZone or from other pieces of technology where you can build an ecosystem around, a personalized ecosystem around a member at the member level, leveraging the core, right? And then pulling in these other pieces. But certainly trying to solve for 100% of the use cases in any technology play is what I call fool's gold. You're just constantly going to be working on a product and never actually launching and leveraging and enabling it. So yes, I think that's a good strategy to start with.
Yeah, and then in the world, and also differentiating that digital offering in the context of, you're not just a digital provider, you're providing an in-club experience and in gym experience, and then how do you connect that with those other things in a way that it makes an impact to the user, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's this, and this, I think the slide shows it perfectly. There's, at least in my mind, a huge shift that needs to be happening at the operator level from, we're going to compete against the club down the street, right? And we're gonna have better equipment, or we're gonna have differentiated classes, or whatever that is, the club versus club, to now it's your club plus everything that you need to connect to really provide the consumer with a kind of a aggregated experience, right? Because consumers are going to have memberships to health clubs. They are going to do at-home workouts. They are going to have, wearables. They are going to have fitness apps. If we think we're going to stop consumers from doing that, it's going to be a very, very long road. And so I think the new world for operators embraces this idea and then works at, how do I create a platform where, we're the one providing the content, we're the one enabling this new world for them.
Yeah. And Chris, I know you have a lot of views on this, Chris. What are your
I think about the trends in our industry and what's happened, as we move through the COVID, pandemic and what's gone on. And, we've noticed that this doesn't necessarily affect all club member types equally. As a good example here, and I'll bring up one category of members, how it affected our club. We typically on a weekday would see a lot of parents bringing in their young children into childcare and then taking their favorite classes, like a 9 a.m. or 9:30 a.m. Class, and it'd be packed. The club would be busy, etc. That category of member is now finding it easier to consume that content at home, not schlep the kids everywhere, pack a snack, make sure you have all the things that are required to leave the house with kids. It's almost like an Everest expedition or something to get out of the house. And so now I'm avoiding that schlep. I'm avoiding that. They may still love your brand. They may still love your instructors. So how do you maintain that connectivity to that group that's now finding it easier perhaps to consume workouts at home several times a week that they ordinarily would have come back into the club? And so when I look at how we approach this new world, which I believe is here to stay, it's really understanding how it affects different customer segments and not looking at this as a one size fits all approach, and more about, okay, who have we lost during this period of time? Who do we think is coming back? And how do we maintain the engagement with that customer during a time where there's a lot of froth, a lot of change, and they could very well drop off the map if they haven't already for this at home workout or some other type of workout. So anyway, I think that's just one window in how we think about the world.
Yeah, and let me just jump in on the back end of that, because sitting over here like one of those puppy dogs in the back of the window with my head going up and down, because ultimately I think it's going to require us to be more and more personalized to what individual members or member subsets want, and being able to deliver that more personalized experience. Because outside of what we do, if you look at the world and how technology is delivering very personalized experiences, that's what consumers are now beginning to expect from all the different areas that they're engaged in. So health clubs are right in with that. So we really have to start thinking about that personalization piece, Chris, that you bring up. I think that's a really important thing for people to consider. And, it'll start, I think, with subsegments of, your demographics, and it'll ultimately get down to, can I deliver almost one-to-one personalization? We'll start with one-to-many, but the world that we live in is really one-to-one personalization, and we're going to be drug along with that if we don't get out in front of it.
Yep, I think that's fair. So when people talk about member experience and being member-centric, it is that kind of omni-channel, in-club, out-of-club, convenience, kind of, this is the way that the consumer is thinking more and more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what we have to watch is not just trends within our industry, but I think we have to keep a very close eye on consumer trends. And I think that's what, the four-letter word Peloton and others really better understood than we did as an industry. It are those consumer expectations and how they're changing, and how other large providers of consumer goods and other things, hospitality, were delivering a more personalized experience. And that's where they waded in and really started to gain market share. And so I think this world continues to accelerate, not slow down. And so, we're not going to force members back into our club being 80, 90, 100% of their fitness and health experience.
I agree.
Consumers are going to force us the other way, where we're going to have to figure out how we play a role as the center of that.
Yeah, absolutely true. So are you guys ready to jump in on a general discussion about what people really want? Because I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Why don't you go first, Brian?
I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Well, for me, I think what we just went through on what's, customer centric is accurate, right? I don't think there's any doubt that what we know in trends that we've just gone through and that the survey represents is the truth. And the question is, how do you deliver that? I think that's the challenge, given your business model. How do you deliver it in a way, considering the puppy analogy that Chris brings up? Because I think what you see a lot of is people reacting to things, and some clubs. How many SaaS solutions alone are you managing at ACAC, Chris? It's got to be 15 or more, right?
Yeah, we have a few.
Yeah, and so I think that's where the core, to execute on that is the challenge. And to do that well is you have to make some business decisions about what you want that to be exactly. And that means, for a lot of people, not everyone, stopping doing a bunch of stuff that isn't really giving you much contribution to that kind of core, and then focusing on more and more as a result, in theory, right? It's kind of like if you had a cat, a fish, a rabbit, and you get a puppy dog. Well, you might need to figure out how to rehome some of the other pets to do a good job. I mean, I think that's where the rubber hits the road right now for a lot of folks. And you can see it in the survey, where half of folks don't even know what they should spend their 75, money on. So what do you think about that, Chris?
Well, I think there's some value in saying no. I mean, I think that's just a business lesson for everybody, is that, a lot of times that it's really tempting to say yes to some things. And we've said no to some technology that sounded pretty cool at the time. I said, man, we really need this. And then we didn't get it, and the world didn't stop turning. I think, I agree with you, Brian. I think we've got to focus on what we need to use to deliver on the product that we want to deliver, that's consistent with our brand and our price point, our value, our value proposition for the member. But I feel like the challenge also is, from a technological standpoint, clubs aren't really known for heavily investing in IT. I mean, when I mean IT, I mean IT infrastructure and support. We're willing to spend money on a software system, but how much are we willing to spend on really qualified technological leads to run our businesses? And I think there's a lot of work that has to be done in this interconnectivity. And I'll give you an example. We had an API interface goes down. When an API goes down, did you get notified, or did your members tell you? So there's a lot of these little, what I call process-oriented things that we as a club, are going to need to focus on, because our members, they see the technology go down and they don't blame the technology. They just blame us. They don't really care who my vendors are. All I know is they're a member of us. So I really feel like simplification is the name of the game. You only have what you need to have to deliver the product. But also taking it one step further is, I think, understanding, what's right for your business. So, for example, our club has a lot of things going on. A camp system, we do medical programming, we obviously have member management and CRM systems and so on. That may not be what a smaller single site operator needs. So don't get all these bells and whistles just because you think you need them. I think try to find a simple solution first, and then let technology solve the problem you have. Don't necessarily buy the technology thinking that, oh, this is now going to support a new business line that I'm going to create.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. And Dana, we've had some other people on the webinar that we've, Luke with Discover Strength, some other folks that, when you look at their business models and the way they think, I think Chris is right. When you got to get focused, and you have to put the application of technology in context around what matters. But boy, people get caught up in the shiny objects, right?
Well, and I think the other thing is, so when we say, what do real people want? I think I go to the member. And I think what the member wants, we ought to be concerned about what the member wants, and then create a technology strategy around that, like technology with a purpose around understanding of my members and understanding what my members want. Because I think members still want results, right? They want positive outcomes. They want a way to understand where they're at. They want assessment, right? They want to know that, hey, rather than just or only the scale, right, which is what we've all relied upon, they want to know that I'm getting stronger. They want to know that I'm more flexible, So I think when we think about what the member wants and we start to build technology around that, the ultimate place for technology, in my opinion, is to increase the member experience. Leverage technology to better the member experience, not not leverage, to Chris's point, not bring technology in, then create a business around the technology. I think that's absolutely completely backwards. Technology should be part of the solution that you're implementing that creates a differentiated member experience that's motivational, that's personalized. God forbid that we help our members have a little fun in the process. And that's kind of where I think technology is a play. It should not be the thing. It should be a enablement tool that helps the other things that you're trying to deliver.
So Chris, that's a great observation. You're right on point, Chris. So when you think about what the member wants as well, there's consistency in delivering that experience. What are your views on what's going on with labor right now? In considering how you deliver that in a world where getting quality people is going to get harder and harder. Do you think that's right? I mean, what are your views on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is somewhat universal, at least to the domestic club operators I've talked to, and certainly in some other locations as well. I think that we're challenged right now to continually find staff. I think we're also coming up against things like minimum wage increases, which are affecting a lot of the clubs around the country. Where labor costs can go up 10% in a year, so it's hard to control for those factors. So if you look at what's happening generally across the country, look at a food store and how many people are ordering via the app and picking up there instead of waiting in place. Look at a food store where you're ordering off of kiosks primarily instead of ordering at the counter with a live person. So from a club perspective, it's a question of what pieces of our business model can be delivered in a way that technology helps us save money on labor. And we've got to look at that now, because let's say that's not tomorrow, but 1 year out or 2 years out. Technological solutions always take longer to build than you think. There's always more troubleshooting than you think, especially if you're starting from zero. It takes time. It takes time to integrate with systems. So I think for all of us, we've got to look at what technological solutions are appropriate for our business model. And furthermore, how do those actually allow us to eliminate some labor from ourselves? Meaning, a good example might be the going back several years, joining online. It used to be no one could join online. Now, if you're not letting people join online, you're doing yourself a disservice. So I think that's kind of the way that we're going. I do believe you'll see more and more club owners be doing automated check-in processes, automated gatekeeping, and so on. Like a lot of the 24-hour operators have already perfected to a large degree. So I do think that's going to be a trend to watch because I don't see the labor crisis in terms of finding staff or the pay rate increase is going away anytime soon, at least here in the States.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian, let me jump in really quickly, because I think as a vendor, right, as we think of EGYM, and we've developed out a concept around the EGYM experience and what we see how that impacts a member. But really, when we think about what we're developing in the next level technology and how we continue to push forward, we actually think about it through 3 lenses, right? First of all is, how do we help clubs grow, right? Member acquisition still remains a huge component of what we're doing in this industry. Second is, how do we help drive ancillary revenue streams? Like, how can we help enable, better PT or small group training or things like that, right? And then, member retention, which is, I think, going to continue to be a more and more important thing. The last piece is what Chris was mentioning, and that's operational efficiency. So as we think about the products that we're developing and releasing and launching, like the Fitness Hub, which we did a webinar on earlier in the year, it's really around how do we how do we help operators with those things? And I think operational efficiency will continue to be a more and more important consideration as you look at technology solutions. Because I do think the issue that we're having, which I believe is a global issue, isn't going away. And the more efficient you can be, and the more you can leverage technology, the better position you're going to be as we continue to fight this over the next, I don't know, 24, 36, whatever months it's gonna continue, if it ever reverses itself.
I wanted to make one small point, Brian, along that line, and sorry for jumping in there, Dana. I feel like the other thing is how you run your business and what your strategic planning is as a business going forward. If you're a business that's very happy being a single site operator or maybe one or two locations, it's fine. You probably don't need a lot of technology. But as you continue to scale, there's going to be a point where you're too small to invest in the technological solutions you need. And so you're going to have no choice but to either scale up or scale down. That you're going to be caught in this middle ground that's going to require more technology to effectively run your business. So much like a lot of consolidation that you've seen in other industries, as people have kind of banded together, because quite simply there's a need to do so. There's going to be potentially a trap that comes to be set for companies that are maybe 5, 6, 7 locations, maybe 8. You need some more technological solutions. You got to make sure that you maintain your cost control and so forth, that the larger operators can outscale. The larger operators are going to have the ability to invest in technology you can't as an operator, and that may put you in a tough position as you look forward into the future.
Yeah, and considering, and I agree with what you're saying. Also, though, consider this. Putting scaling aside, which is very important. You're absolutely right. I think there's so much that people just assume. I mean, think about the member experience on the fitness floor today in general. And I attend a very well-respected, multifaceted club that's been on the cover of magazines, great club. But literally when you walk in, unless you have someone guiding you or a lot of personal knowledge, that experience, there's no experience. Like
Right.
You just have some great equipment hanging around. You've got if you don't know what to do, there is no self-service guidance whatsoever. And
Right.
this is, I think, I think this is the common experience people have. So I think you're right in scalability, but I think people need to start rethinking the basics of what it is that we're doing for folks. Because honestly, in many cases, it would be like going to a restaurant and not even being given a menu. It's kind of like, oh, there's the stuff we can cook, go ahead and throw it on the grill if you want. I mean, that's what it's like. And that's not me being, I don't want to come across wrong, but I think it's going to take some folks to realize how much better that can be when you talk about acquisition, retention, ancillary revenue. If you don't systematize this stuff as a core aspect of your business model, even though you're going to have people that don't use any tech, and you're right, Chris, there are always going to be anomalies. But I think fundamentally, I mean, look at McDonald's. They're completely reinventing the manufacturing of hamburgers. They're eliminating 70% of their staff. And, so I think there's going to be a complete rethinking of some of these business models. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, it's interesting because I just want to jump in quick. Early, before I actually joined EGYM, known John Ford, who's our chief product officer, for a long time. We happened to live close by each other in Seattle, so we would, as industry colleagues, get together. I'll never forget the time he brought a picture to lunch, and this wasn't that long ago, of 2 fitness floors, right? And it was like, when is this and when was that? And literally one was in the late 90s and one was in 2015, and they look exactly the same. And if you weren't a fitness guy who said, well, that has to be 2015 because, this group changed the way their weights looked, which, no consumer knows that, you would not have been able to navigate through those to understand the difference, which says we haven't changed our approach to keep up with what the consumer and what real people want, which is, ultimately self-service, ease of use, engagement, motivation, guidance, right? Regular assessment, and to enjoy the experience. And that's where I think we have to really look outside of our industry to what some of the other people are doing to help begin to apply some of that in our industry.
You're right, Dana. And here's a guy's CEO of a big, how many members do you have now, Chris?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. We're probably 50,000. We used to be 70,000 pre-pandemic, so we're still catching up.
Big business. So it's easy for me to say this. I mean, I own some clubs, but they're not, they don't have that many members. But so in your world, when people say that kind of stuff, it's a little more complicated. I don't want us to sound cavalier, but what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, right? I mean, I think the challenge, obviously, as you get bigger in the club world, it's a question of how big your rudder is, how fast you can turn, and I think, we're trying to, right? I mean, fitness floors have evolved somewhat, but when you speak about it from a technological perspective, I guess one of the things that I look to is how do they know it's working, right? We're that industry where everyone comes in and they pay us for the privilege of doing all the work themselves. Right. And it's not, it's as you talk about a restaurant, when you come in, you expect to be served and all this. We actually charge for members to come in, and if we're not helping them and guiding them and actually showing them that there are results for their effort, that there is progress being made, well, then many of them lose faith. And quite frankly, a lot of the progress may not be visible. I mean, we use the old metric of the scale or something like that, but there's a lot of progress that happens under the surface, both physically in terms of muscle development, but also mentally upstairs, and how you feel about yourself and how you feel about life. So how are we measuring this over time? And I think, when we were running medical programs, ACAC ran quite a few of these. In the 60-day period, the thing that changed the most with our members who are in medical programs was really their mental health, how much better they felt about themselves, how much more energy levels, how much more their energy level, how much their energy levels rose, or how much more energy they had. And really that is what you measured. So, but if we weren't measuring that, we wouldn't have known, right? So I think that, like the equipment like EGYM has that actually allows the members to make progress, that actually helps them set it up, quite frankly, to know that they're in a position to not get hurt. That's the kind of stuff that's pretty darn cool, to be quite frank. And I think, this is where the industry needs to go, is to have something that does look and feel a little bit different and moves the ball forward. It is sad that the fitness floors haven't changed that much in that period of time. And not that all of it's bad. I think obviously a lot of strength equipment still stands the test of time. Picking up heavy things and putting them back down again is part of the process here. But I think that, if we're not actually then taking measurements and taking data and getting information, how does that allow us as an industry to really be a player, right? Every other industry on earth is capturing data. Every other industry on earth knows a lot more about their customers than we do. And so I think that's something that we have an opportunity to change.
Yeah, and the personalization and all the things that we talked about, and what that means to what you were bringing up, Dana, member acquisition, retention, operational efficiency, all these dynamics, which I think today are a must. Well, gentlemen, we have a few questions, and I know we're already at 45 minutes. Go ahead, Dana. Yep,
I add one last thing to that, because I think that's a really good way to tie this up.
Yep.
Technology does not equal not making money.
Right.
Technology, when applied with a purpose, should be about improving your P&L. And
right.
I think that's a really important point, because I think most people see technology as this major, huge investment, and it certainly is. An investment usually means time, energy, time, talent, and treasure, which is money. But when you're thinking about doing it with a purpose, you can apply it in a way that's actually improves your P&L, doesn't hurt your P&L. Yes, you have upfront investment, but really when you think about it through that window, there's a lot that technology can do to make you a more profitable business.
Agreed.
In the long run. Agreed.
So we have a few questions, guys. A few of them have come in. One's coming here. A few of them's coming through my WhatsApp. People like to send me those independent. So I'm glad I have my phone on. So Andrea Mason Cup. Thank you, Andrea, for sending a question in. So what is your suggestion to increase technology, apps, wearables, streaming, when the majority of members are over 60 that don't understand or want to try? So I'm going to let you guys answer that, then I'm going to come at the end with my thinking on that. What do you say, Chris?
Yeah, that's a good one. We obviously that's a struggle, because quite frankly, we're dealing with technological solutions that aren't even related to the club. For example, I don't know my Apple ID password. How do I reset that? So we turn into the Genius Bar, just trying to help them use their phones. So I do think that is a struggle. One thing that we've done is actually created a lot of knowledge base and libraries around using the technology, and also done walkthroughs at the point of sale and membership when members come in, both young and old, so that before they leave the sales office, they actually know that they have the app installed on their phone, and they know how to log in, and it's working, right? So even just that simple step that, yeah, we can't guarantee that they don't, forget a password or log out or that type of thing. But I think then, once they're established in the technology, talking about why they need it. Hey, that swim lesson or that swim lane that you always want to book, you want the one right next to the wall every Friday at 10 o'clock. Well, if you don't have the app, you can't guarantee that spot's going to be available to you. So I think helping the seniors understand the value of being able to register and log in and consume products. Also, the degree to which you create the opportunity for e-commerce on your app, whether it be discounts on services or other ways of notifying members when clubs closed, et cetera, will help create the value proposition that folks need to actually start in the first place. I mean, the real issue is, why do I need this? And I think if you can demonstrate, number one, how to put it on their phone and make sure it's working, in the phone app case, and then number two, demonstrate why they need the technology and why it's important to their type of membership and their type of experience. And then, the last two, you're looking at wearables and streaming and so forth. Wearables aside, looking at the streaming content, I really think, hey, if it's on a snow day, you can still get your workout in. There's little things that you can say to people that personalize that experience for them and basically make them have an emotional attachment to how it would feel to not have that benefit. And so we've done that. And quite frankly, our most popular classes on our streaming are either very low impact or very high impact, and usually short format, 30 minutes or less. So we're talking about, a lot of the people who are consuming the online content now probably fall into that senior category for us.
Yeah. Dana, what are your thoughts? Great comments, Chris.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a little issue with this, because I'm starting to see that age, that 60 and up, be not the discussion point. It seems to me it's almost like 75 and 80 and up that you really start to address this, because I believe people that are 75 and below don't have as big a technology challenge as we oftentimes like to project that they do. So I think first, you're going to see some of the issues age out as more people who use and live and breathe technology fall into that 60 and up bucket. And when you're going to need to start talking about 75 and up, who are the ones that are a little bit more technology challenged. But I would also tell you that two of the big segments that we serve, and I'll specifically reference active aging, we're not seeing a ton of resistance to technology based on what Chris just said, which is we help them through it, we provide educational pieces, and then we tell them why it matters to them. Like, we personalize the use of technology and we limit it, right? We don't say, hey, here's this humongous platform with 17 different choices. Like you might be able to get away with younger group. You try to limit it, you educate them, you personalize it, and then you make sure they understand the benefit in the long run. And we've surprisingly seen a pretty nice uptake, specifically in active aging, around our product, which is a technology-driven product.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what Chris, I think, has a really good approach to it.
Yeah, he does. Then that's a real world operationalization. I think that, frankly, a lot of the UX around apps that have been developed over a number of years is very poor. It's overly complicated. That doesn't help. And then I think you're right. I think the cohort that is the challenge is definitely age shift up. 60-year-olds, I don't see nearly as big of an issue. But even with some folks, if the UX isn't really clean and easy and not overly demanding, you're going to have a challenge with adoption. And I know a number of clubs, I see their app adoption, it's very poor because A, they're not integrating it in the way that Chris is describing, which is very important on onboarding. And then B, the UX around it is overly complicated. It's not what you're saying, Dan. It's not very clear on do this, then that. It's a little too trying to do too many things. And so it's not ideal. So good question. So I have Liam. So we have 3 clubs with about 8,000 members, and we don't use much tech outside of billing. Where do we start? This is a question. It's a good question. So Chris, if you were in a situation like that, you have 3 clubs, 8,000 members or so, you're only using billing companies, you don't have, where do you start in assessing the technology?
Yeah. My mind went right away to, okay, what would be the next thing I would buy? Right. So if I was, in that, and so what would I add if I was making it first choice? And, some people may disagree, but I would probably go towards some kind of CRM system to make sure I manage my sales and marketing funnel, because obviously from a health club, everything stems from having a member or someone paying you on a monthly or semi-regular basis to use your product and service. So I also think that's a primary form of communication to members, one that they tolerate and one that gives you information on knowing them. Most modern CRM systems can tell you quite a bit about your member based upon their experience, or even your potential customers who interact with you. But as far as approaching the technology, I think the first thing is what Dana, I think, alluded to, at the beginning of this conversation, which is know your brand. Identify, okay, as a brand, what makes sense for us? What are other similar brands doing that are like ours in terms of what kind of product they offer, similar in size and scope and so forth. And I would do that research on the market, really see what else is out there from a competitive landscape. And then look at some clubs that are maybe a little bit bigger than you are to say, okay, if we aspire to be a 5-club chain or a 6-club chain with 16,000 members, what are the technological investments we need to make now that will allow us to grow into that strategic goal? Because quite frankly, I think, if you want to make that jump to being a bigger club, you're going to have technology that supports that, and not to mention infrastructure and other things. But I think you might want to start making those investments now, or at least understanding what they'll need to be so that you can plan for your future growth.
Good feedback. Dana?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it all stems with the member. Start with your members, understand, do a demographic analysis so that you know. So for instance, to the earlier question, if your demographic skews older, that's going to help you begin to think about what technology they will accept and what technology they'll take on board. If it tends to skew younger, you can begin to be a little bit more expansive with your technology, because that's the world that they live in. So I say, in addition to what Chris is saying, that I think you have to start understanding what your membership base is, then understanding what your brand and what your members want, and kind of go from there. But Chris, I'd echo Chris's point that, look, we are a member-driven industry that relies on membership growth in order to continue to evolve. So if you don't have a really good CRM system in place, that I echo, that would be job one that I would look at.
Good feedback. One final question. This is from my friend Vicky. She asks, what is EGYM exactly? That's good. I don't know.
Dana, I think this one's for you.
Yeah, Dana, there you go.
Well, it's I would say that there's a lot more to it than we probably need that we can answer just right now. I'll probably grab Vicky, your name, and we'll do an offline thing. But basically, EGYM is a technology platform that leverages technology to drive our Smart Strength line of equipment, our integrated cardio, where we're able to pull data from both of those to enable our smart apps. So we have both a trainer app and a member app, and we're able to pull that information in together. So essentially, we're an ecosystem or a platform that kind of puts the member at the center and then drives and delivers solutions around that, so that we create a differentiated member experience, leveraging technology to create smart outcomes on our Smart Strength line, cardio, wearables. So we're an open platform that integrates with 135 plus different technologies to, again, create this ecosystem around the member. But there's a lot more to it. We have 18 pieces of strength equipment. We integrate with Matrix, Precor, Life, all the cardio manufacturers. We integrate with MyZone and Apple Watch and, Fitbit and a bunch of Strava and a bunch of wearables in order to, create that on an open platform. So that's a very high level answer.
Yeah, Vicky, I'll send all the contact information. Go to the website and you'll learn some more. So good question. Guys, I want to thank you so much. We're right toward the end. I want to remind everybody that you really want to get this report. It's a great read. It's worth your time. It's not going to take that much time to go through it. Here's the QR code if you want it now, or we'll send a follow-up later on regarding that, so you can get a copy of it. Really worth reading. I want to thank you, Chris and Dana, for taking time today to share your insights and to address, creating member-centric experiences. It was a great event. It was great seeing both of you in Dallas recently. I look forward to seeing my friends in Europe. I'll be in Munich in less than 2 weeks, and I'll be on the stage for the first time in 2 years talking about tech. So join the event, the Fitness Connected event with Ursa. You can join that event digitally as well as in person in Munich. So I hope to see you there. And otherwise, Dana, again, thanks to EGYM for the sponsorship. Chris, thank you so much for all that you do. I can't tell you enough how much work this guy's put in the last year and a half. Thanks again so much, Chris. And thank you, audience. We appreciate you all attending.
Hey, Brian, be sure to
everybody.
stop by EGYM headquarters when you're in Munich.
I will definitely
All right.
have a hello to the team there. A lot of great people there. So anyway,
Awesome.
we'll see you again soon, everyone.
Chris,
Thanks for
thank
your
you.
time.
Thanks
Appreciate
all.
it. Take
All
care.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.